Blades Ramble are proudly supported by our main channel sponsor, My Business Group, a group of brands designed to support owners, leaders and managers in business. If you're looking to grow your business, contact mybusinessgroup.co.uk today for more information or follow the link in the description below. And as this is hot off the presser, we're proudly sponsored by High Point Access Limited, your number one stop shop for all your working at heights and roofing needs. If you mention the Ramble when you're asking for a quote, you'll receive 10% off any works. Find their details in all the links below. Thank you to High Point Access Limited for your continued support of the Blades Ramble.
Blades fans, subscribe to Blades Ramble. Up the Blades.
Oh, there's something wrong with the system. But anyway, we're back. You can hear me. I'm sure you can now because I know what it's about. So Chris was saying already, Hot Off the Presser is back and it's starting to feel real now. Thank you to everybody for joining us. I'm very excited. This press conference has got me really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. It's real, isn't it now? It's real. Something is definitely wrong with this system, by the way, but we will get that sorted. So, should we jump straight into it now that we're back for Hot Off the Presser? Oh, Ruben Selles' first press conference. First press conference in terms of a competitive game leading into that. And I liked it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to get quicker with my writing because I was scribbling down. They got through a lot in half an hour. They were there half an hour. They sort of dropped it on us. I didn't see it. Thank you to Jamie Dumpling, who flagged it up to me that it was happening. So the first question, kicked off by Adam Oxley of Radio Sheffield, was, how are you feeling? How are you feeling now that you're the Sheffield United manager going into the first game of the season? And he said, I'm really excited. The biggest part of the job is playing the game, and I'm hoping for a top performance from the boys. Are you going to be interested to see how it all comes together? All your work that you've been doing pre-season, surely now is like the ultimate test as to what you've been preparing for. And he said, we've been maximising everything we can out of pre-season. How can we transform that into 3 points? That is the biggest question that we've got. That's always the challenge coming out of pre-season. There were some shorter answers than we used to with Chrissy Wilder, as you'd expect. So there's a little bit more prompting from the interviewers. And there is obviously a language barrier a little bit, but you couldn't really tell, to be honest. He was very fluent in what he was saying. Are you pleased with the pre-season and how it's gone? And he said, we're prepared. We're prepared as well as we can be now. Some of the games were already agreed before I got here. I wanted to add a higher level of opposition so that we got what he meant was like a sliding scale of quality that we were playing against. So we did that. Just a note on that as well, by the way. Our pre-season friendlies, this is me talking, not the presser, were not fully completed and arranged before Chris Wilder left. We were in the middle of a transition period between managers when we were finalising the overseas tours and things like that we did. So it's not a case of Wilder left us high and dry with not enough opposition, and that's not what Sayers is saying either. But what we've done is we'd lined up some lower level opposition, domestic lower level opposition, which we're all aware of, all away games, which were already in the calendar. And then when Sayers came in, he's basically saying, as a separate point, he also wanted higher level opposition to test ourselves against. And we've done that. And he was pleased with that. He says it was a good blend of opposition that we played. And we've played well. Those are the standards that we want from the players. Adam asked if there's any injury concerns. How's Jack Robinson? Is he good to go for Saturday? He said Robbo's been training. So he's been training with us. We'll need to make an assessment before the game, but he should be good to go for Saturday. There are 3 players out. Ollie Arblaster was obviously one of them. Tom Dave, let me just check out. Sorted all good. Right, okay, sorry, I was just double checking. Tom Davis is out. Tom Davis. Poor old Tom Davis. Is he ever going to get a run of luck? And the midfield's sort of stacking up now as well, isn't it? So he gets nudged further and further out. And Jamie Shackleton, who's picked up another injury. So Unfortunately, Tom Davies and Jamie Shackleton, although from what I understand, Jamie Shackleton is going to be included in the first team this season when fit and available, because if you think about how Selles wants to play, and this wasn't mentioned in the presser either, this is just me jumping off at tangents. If you think about how Selles wants to play, you could compare it, and it's not going to be the same, and I don't want this to be taken out of context, but if you think back to that Leeds side with the Marcelo Bielsa high-intensity press, Jamie Shackleton thrived in that environment, and that is what Selles likes about Jamie Shackleton. So when he's fit, don't be surprised, which is what I've been told, don't shoot the messenger, that he will be involved in and around the first team when he's available, because he's impressed previously in a high press, high intensity side. So those three are the three out: Blaster, Tom Davies and Shackleton. On Jack Robinson, is he fit enough to play on Saturday, says Adam. And he says, yes, I think so. He's ready to go as far as I'm concerned. I just need to make that final check. Well, he's much needed, says Adam, with Anel leaving and Kiefer Moore going. And Sayers says, well, that's football. These things do happen. Kiefer we were ready for. Anel, it was much more of a short notice deal. He said it was a 24-hour deal. Anel said, this is key, Anel said this would be his last year with us. Anel let us know that this was his last year with us. We will now readjust and get the best replacement in that we can get. So that tells you all you need to know. Anel wanted to leave, and he'd let us know. He was clear with Sheffield United that he would be leaving us or apparently, from what has been said here, the context I take this in is that he would have left at the end of the season anyway, and that would have been for free. And the amount that we got for him, I think is really good business by the club. Any more expected to leave? There's concerns, says Adam, around Gus Hamer and Michael Cooper, and he says hopefully not. They're in different situations to Anel. I will never say never in this business, but we want to keep them both. So there's nothing in. He's certainly not confirmed nor denied it, but he's certainly reiterating his stance that he wants to keep them. And Adam says, well, we do look a little bit light, or you do look a little bit light. Do you want any more in? And he says, I hear people saying we look light. I've been in worse positions than this. The thing is, I won't accept average. We want very good players, which makes it slightly more difficult to get people in because the standard is high in terms of what he wants. We're confident in what we have currently. So are you still looking then, says Adam? He says, yes, we still want to strengthen. We're looking at the back line particularly, but also some options further forward as well. Have you been given assurances that you will be able to reinvest the money from the sales of players? Another good question from Adam. We can invest part of that money. Key was part of that money, which is to be expected, but he didn't obviously talk about how much. We aren't replacing, I thought this was interesting as well. We've got to remember we aren't replacing player by player. We want exciting players in this side, and it's a different profile for what we're going for. So there have been some accusations previously that Wilder had a bloated squad. Now, people will have their own opinions on that. This is not part of the press conference. This is a tangent from me. But he is recruiting different profiles of players and possibly different positions of players to Wilder. So I found that really interesting that he said that we are not replacing player for player. Samare then, says Adam. What do you know? What can you tell us about Jibril Samare coming in? And he says, well, we had to look at the configuration of the midfield. A lot of our midfield players are good ball players. They get forward really well. Their final ball is really good. They're good in possession. We wanted a different profile of player, both defensively, athletically, and the fact that he's left-footed as well helps. He's also a big personality in the changing room, and he's really well thought of from where he's come from. He's a good addition, a really good addition to both the team and the dressing room. Do you feel like you're ready? Says Adam. Yes, I do. Competition is strong in the squad, but there's... sorry. Do you feel like he is ready? Yes, I do. The competition is strong in centre midfield, but there's 46 games in the Championship. We need to have adaptable players that can come in and maybe not play the full 90, but also have players that we feel are capable to come in and do a job for us. I can't even read my own writing here. Ollie McBurney, that's it. I've put OM, or I've tried to. You've recently seen Ollie McBurney sign for your old club, Hull. Are you disappointed that that's not come off? He says, I'm not disappointed. So he didn't say we were never in for him. He didn't try and deflect that there was interest there. And he didn't do that with a lot of players, really, which was interesting, which we'll come to. He says, I'm not disappointed. These things happen. I didn't know him personally, but I know a lot of people here will wish him all the best. We all know what's happened with McBurney is that Sheffield United were interested. We put an offer out on the table, but as a squad option, we gave him an offer in line with what players who aren't due to start will get. He's had a better offer from Hull in terms of both money and minutes, so we weren't willing to offer him that. So he's chosen them, and fair play to him. There's more rumours, says Adam, on different players coming in. Nils Zetterstrom, Charlie Hughes and Ben Godfrey. What can you tell us about these targets? Fair play to Adam for going fishing, and fair play to the manager for biting and sort of telling him about these. He said, well, we need a centre-back, which was good to hear, which I know a lot of the fan base will clearly agree with. Those three are on our list. Straight up, those three are on our list. Ben, I know a little bit about him. Every team at our level would want him. Charlie Hughes is one of the most talented young players in the league. Any team would want him at our level. Niels, I know a little bit about. Zetterstrom is an international already at 20 years old. Everybody knows, or people will get to know, that I like to follow these foreign leagues and watch the progress of young players. I follow him, so they're all on the list, but nothing has progressed at this time. From what I'm hearing, there is a bid on the table for Zetterstrom. I'm also hearing, and this is your reward for tuning into Hot Off the Presser, even though we might have the odd technical glitch at the beginning, which I will get sorted. Ben Godfrey, there is legs to the Ben Godfrey deal, and it's a loan, possibly with an obligation to buy. The fact that we are switching to this loan target of Ben Godfrey, which is a higher spec than we'd originally been in the mix for, might mean that Tim from Everton now drops down the list, if at all comes in. So that changes the goalpost on a lot of things, because now it's getting later and higher caliber players are becoming available. So Ben Godfrey is on the list. We are monitoring the situation at Hull with Charlie Hughes. We really like him as a player. Sayers certainly really likes him as a player. And as he's mentioned there, they're all on our list. Do you feel, another good question from Adam Oxley from Radio Sheffield, do you feel like the team is ready for the top end of the Championship at the moment? He says, good answer this, by the way. In the short term, yes. In the long term, no. We've still got a job to do in the transfer market. Our young players, we have such good young players. You mentioned Ryan One, with such talent at the club, but we need to help them. And Adam moved on to that, saying, you talk about One, Brooks and Peck, etc. Do you still see these as academy players, some of these, or are they fully fledged first teamers now? And he says, I see them as first teamers. I like to look long term. If we want academy players, to come through the first team, so that they know, good young players know that they've got a path into our first team. We have that here. Our young players have got experience in the top end of the Championship. Adam then says, on to Bristol City then. What can you tell us about them? He said, well, we have to look at their new manager, Gerard Struber. He's a good, experienced coach. He likes to play with a high press. I've seen them pre-season playing with a back five, but I'm not, that doesn't mean that they're definitely going to go with that. They could still go with a back four. They're a good team. They're strong at set plays. I don't expect huge changes from them despite the change of manager, but I do expect some adjustments from Struber. Adam then said, another good question. Hard to prepare. Is it hard to prepare for these sort of games more than any, with it being pre-season and having nothing else to look back at, particularly with the new manager? Obviously, they'll be facing the same with us. We've got Ruben Selles in charge now and are expected to play a different way. He says you have to get your information in different ways. I look at the manager. I watch individual players. Risa, for example, at Bristol City. How is he going to fit into their system? We'll then go back and watch videos of Risa in action rather than a Bristol City video. We'll look at Risa, who's going to come into their team, and how does he play. There's no trends to look back on, but also we need to focus on ourselves and how we want to play. And Adam then says, what do you think success is this season? And he says, excellence levels. Interesting answer. I thought, excellence levels. We want to compete and win every game. And if we can do that, if we can be excellent every game, then we've the chance of winning majority of games. Then Danny Hall came in, local reporter for the Sheffield Star, said, does that mean then that you're focusing more on the process rather than the outcome? And he says, yes, I know the targets. You come to a club like Sheffield United and we know we're not trying to avoid or change the question. We want to get promoted. That's why we're here. That doesn't happen tomorrow, though. And that doesn't happen next week or before the end of the transfer window. How do we do it over 10 months? What's next? What is next around the corner? And next up is Bristol City. I talk about being excellent every day. That's what we're trying to do. You've been here for around 6 weeks now, says Danny. Have you had long enough, do you think, to prepare? He says it depends on the group usually, but our group here fits our ideas. Then pre-season, we've had the pre-season to prepare each game like we would prepare for it like we would in the league. I'll know more after 5 or 6 games, and then we may have to adjust something, but he's happy with where we are at the moment. Can you tell us about your involvement day to day and how much you get involved in transfers and how much is on the field? And he said, I'm very much a coaching manager. I like to be the coach and heavily involved in training sessions and preparing the team. Obviously, I have say on transfers as well. I tell the board what positions I want and sometimes what players I want, and I will be involved in the final decision-making process of who comes in. But my main focus is on preparing the players as a group. It's got to be on games, preparation and training. And obviously that will change significantly as well after the 1st of September when we can fully focus on that, when we know who's in the door and who's not. Another name that Danny wanted to throw out to him was Sol Young-woo, the right back from Korea. He says, yeah, I've watched him. Nothing concrete at the minute. We're looking at different players in that position. So that's interesting to hear. We're still looking at a right back, which we know. It's not a priority position, something we've spoken about. If this is going to happen, and from what I understand, it's a deal that we have got money on the table for this Korean right back. But it might be something that goes towards the end of the window. I think his club are involved in European competition at the moment, which might delay it very slightly. Ivo Gerbic has today gone out on loan. Is that the end of his time at United? He said, well, we had 3 competent goalkeepers at the club. Coops is one of the best 2 in the league. Who else could he be talking about there? He's gone down in my estimation. It's a point off for Sayers there. One of the 2 best in the league is Michael Cooper. He's an excellent goalkeeper at the level. Adam Davis has been very good pre-season, he says. Ivo has worked hard too. I told them all when I came in, well, I'm going to give you both, particularly the Davis and Gerbic, I'm going to give you a chance to be involved in pre-season, which he did. He said, looking at Ivo, he needs games. He needs to go and play. He needs to go and find his confidence levels, and sitting here as a 2 or a 3 won't help him. Go and play some games, and we'll have a big decision to make, hopefully, next summer. So, not closing the door, which is the right thing to do. If he goes and has a brilliant season on loan, then if we fail to get promoted again, for example, Cooper will likely go. Is he then going to be our number 1 goalkeeper after he's found his confidence and proven himself? I'm sure he'll be in the mix if that's the case, but there's all sorts of things that could happen there. Jack Robinson's your captain then. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, says Danny? He says, well, he's got experience in the club, in the competition and in the dressing room as well. I expect professionalism from him. He has been that way so far, and I expect that to continue. So he fits the mould of what he's looking for at the moment, is basically how he said it. What's your message to the fans, says Danny? He says, we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to playing for them. We want them to support us. In Spain, we have a saying that the fans are player number 12, which is it's very similar to what we say over here, isn't it? Then a third, I couldn't make out who it was, the third interviewer just asked a couple of questions saying, is this your biggest challenge? He says, I'd say so. Reading, you can't really compare to anything else. But the city, the club, I'm excited for the season. it's not pressure, it's more excitement. And he said, well, talking about pressure, do you feel any pressure at the club? And he was saying, no, pressure is internal, not external. No one is more critical of me than myself, so I'm quite used to that. Just go out and try and beat what's in front of you, get the 3 points, that's all that matters. And the last thing he was asked was, how do you feel the players and the club will react to last season's disappointment? And he says, the memory will stay with them. We have to channel that in the right way. I'm paraphrasing, but we have to use that in the appropriate way, in the proper way. The promotion target's there at the end. We just need to start for the boys to start as well as they possibly can. Talking again about that 10-month process, and let's be excellent today, and then everything will take care of itself. And that were it. It was quite an abrupt finish. I thought we were really positive, to be honest. Really, I wasn't sure what to expect. I've heard a little bit about Ruben Selles from speaking to some Hull fans and other channels and things like that, who said he's very guarded. He didn't appear that way today. He was quite open about some of the targets we're talking to and looking at. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as a press conference. I didn't enjoy scribbling down as fast as I possibly could, but I'm positive about what he was saying. I'm more excited for the season than I have been now. So yeah, been really good to hear. So let's get some comments. I'm going to skip over some of these. Harry says, I've been negative recently because of the lack of movement. I hope the result on Saturday can change that. Up the flipping blades and up the ramble. Let's just scroll past a few of these. Josh says, sounds like they're looking for a paltry 3 or 4 million for Kone. Are we in for him? Not that I'm aware of. But when I was talking to people about Kone and things like that, this is when he was rumoured to be 5 million quid. Whether that changes anything with his price, I'm not entirely sure. But we certainly weren't in for him. I know there's been a report out today saying that a promotion chasing championship club are now in the race for Kone. I don't believe it's us. It might be, but I've not had any updates about that. Great Bant says, Charlie Hughes for £10 million reported. Worth it? You're paying for the potential there, aren't you? I don't think he's a £10 million player at the moment. I think I'd probably go to no higher than 7 or 8 personally. I don't know. I don't know whether we'll do it. I don't think we will at that sort of price. I'd be shocked. If we are, I think there's a bit of a smell of desperation about it. And particularly with Hull, who, yes, they know the asset that they've got, and they might look out here in terms of, there's us and Coventry apparently very interested, so they might start a bidding war, which is what they want. But we all know Hull are skint. So it's one of them who blinks first, really, I suppose. Johnny says, feeling excitedly nervous, but nothing to fear going into the first few games. Top man. Wayne says, I think we desperately need a centre-half, and we can't wait until we're really struggling. Anel needs replacing. Centre-back, we're short. We're definitely short at centre-half, Wayne. You're not wrong. Brand says, afternoon, Jimmy. We sold 2 of our best players, and they'll be replaced with loans. That, for me, is the board making their intentions pretty clear. Zero ambition. Kick off in 3 days with a weak back line. Who played more, says Scott. Tom Davis or Hitch from Escape to Victory? Good question. John says, Jimmy Shackleton could never stay fit at Leeds. Always one of the fittest during pre-season, but as soon as the season started, he would pick injuries up and could never shake them off. Well, we saw that last season, pal. I don't know if you're a Leeds fan, but we saw the same. He couldn't stay fit last year, and when he did, there were some off-the-field issues that he were dealing with as well. Excited for Saturday, Jim, says Michael. I think we win 3-2 in a topsy-turvy game. Can see us scoring a few, but leaking a few as well until we can bolster the defence up the Ramble. Buzzing for the season, says Lee. Me too, mate. We are light in most parts of the pitch. Have it on good authority that the owners don't want to use their own money and are relying on player sales and parachute payments. Worrying. I think, don't majority of owners run clubs like that? I might be wrong. But I think a lot of clubs run it in terms of what the club generate. And I'm not trying to dismiss what you're saying, Bran, either, because I'd like the owners to put money in, obviously. But I'm pretty sure that's standard rather than shocking. Mark says, roll on Saturday. Football is back. Let's get behind the lads and the new gaffer. Up the blades, up the Ramble, up the positive Meldrew. Love that, pal. Brett says, it's a new system and formation. We don't need the same types and number of players in certain positions. Says we'll know what he needs And while we need a couple more in our opinion, we will see up all the rambles. I think he covered it best when he said, we're okay for the short term, we're not for the long term. And I agree with him. I agree with that. Jack says, can see why the new owners chose Selles. Sayers. First time I've done that in a while. But there you go. So Jack's been convinced already after one presser. Love that. Lee says, best manager interview in my lifetime. Awesome. Lee? Is this the same Lee that was last night saying how dire it is, should never have got rid of Wilder? I love that. I love that you can put your hand up and say, actually, I'm quite impressed with that. And I know it's not necessarily a full 180 and your gripes might more be with the board, but I love that you're turning round a little bit, pal. Leeds Master says, I thought the manager spoke well. It made me more excited for my first season ticket holder game. We'll win 3-0. The season looks bright. I have faith that we will get promoted. Up the Blades, up the Ramble. So for those that aren't aware, I hope Leeds Master doesn't mind me saying this, but he's been in touch with me recently. And he follows both Leeds United and the Blades, and he's now got a season ticket at Sheffield United. So, yeah, hope we do you well in your first game as a season ticket holder, pal. Brand says, makes sense as to why the owners got rid of Wilder for Sayers. Be happy to work with what he's given and won't moan about the lack of signings. A real yes man. I don't think he's a yes man. I don't think he is. I think he'll be more willing to discuss and talk things through. We all knew what we were getting with Wilder, didn't we? And I think the board did as well. If he didn't get his own way, he wouldn't be happy about it. And he's just a very, very strong character. And I'm not saying Sayers isn't a strong character, but Wilder thought he knew best, and his track record would say he did. That's probably the best way I can put it, because his CV speaks for itself. If he was just another generic championship manager that hadn't been promoted out of this league and won the LMA Manager of the Year award and got Sheffield United to 9th in the Premier League, if he hadn't done everything that he has done, then he wouldn't hold that gravitas in terms of being able to call more shots than he probably should. But he knows what he can do, and that's why he was a much stronger character. And to take him out is a big move by the board, but it does probably give them a little bit more control. And Sayers will not be as combative, and this is just an assumption, by the way, going from both characters. I don't think Sayers will be as combative as Chris Wilder in the boardroom. Not that Chris Wilder were unprofessional in any way, from what I've heard, but I think he's certainly stood his ground. I think Sayers will be more willing to negotiate. It certainly doesn't mean he's a yes man. I don't agree, Brand. We don't know, do we, to be honest? But I'd like to think that's not the case. Can't wait to see how we do this season. I'm really excited. So glad football is back, says Beast Boy. Me too. Nate says, hi Jimmy, hope you're well. I love the fact that Sayers is straight and honest in answering all questions. It fills me with confidence. We'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. I agree, Nate. It was a really direct, no dodging sort of, I don't know whether it was premeditated that he'd come in and just be open and sort of talk openly, and this might be a one and done in terms of that. We might start to shut up shop a little bit now. But I'd like to think this is his approach going forward, because I had heard, as I say, that he's quite guarded with stuff usually. Well, if he feels that the fans need to know a little bit more, then maybe he's willing to do that in terms of opening up a little bit. I thought it was really refreshing, to be honest. I like how Sayers speaks, says Mark. He comes across really educated on the game. Let's get behind him now. Clearly has a plan regarding incomings. He definitely does, mate. He definitely does. Paul says, seems to me these new owners can peel a couple of oranges in their very long pockets, up the Blades, up the Ramble. Fraser says, my gut says Barry will be excellent, if not exceptional, this season, and will be a Prem winger in the next season, no matter our circumstances. Similar to Gibbs White in quality and drive. I know they're different players. Yes, they are, mate. They are different, but it's great that you've got confidence in Louis Barry. We all want to have confidence. I have. I think he's an excellent signing for us, and it's disappointing in some ways that we haven't got an option. And we were talking about that this morning in the Platinum chat. So, yeah, a great signing, and hopefully he does well. I like how he spoke about making adjustments if it's not working. Sounds refreshing, says Jack. It certainly does. Ivo's gone because of the wages, says Luke. Coming from Atletico Madrid, he must have been on a decent wage. And can we really justify that on the bench? Yeah, his wages will have been a big part to play in it. Also, he's an asset for us. We want him to be playing games and either gaining value or at least maintaining any value that we've got in him. So it makes sense for him to go out and play when he's going to be choice probably number 3 from what Sayers was saying. Sean says, I think we need 2 centre-backs. I think Hughes, if we can get him, would be excellent, and Godfrey on loan would be a good signing. I don't think we'll get both. I don't think we'll get both. It's the whole striker situation again, if you look at it. We've brought in Bindon to play. Bindon will definitely play. And I think we're getting one of the more established. And by Hughes and Godfrey, I think they are the more established. I think Zetterstrom will come in as a peripheral player, probably on a permanent if we can do the deal that we want to do. And it'll be Hughes or Godfrey. At this moment in time, things can obviously change really quickly. More likely to be Godfrey than Hughes, I think, just because of the numbers that are being thrown about. He's got this, Jimmy, says Dave Morwood. I hope you're right, pal. It does appear so, doesn't it? I'm happy with what he said. Do like the cut of his jib, says Home Funk. No need to get too high, no need to get too low, and no need to say the opponent is Barcelona at circa 2010, like a certain manager who needed that energy. Oh, Funk. All over Kone, but we don't need 4 strikers. Can he play wide left and right? I think Cannon, One and Campbell all can. I don't think we're in for Kone. Jack says, come on, lads, let's get behind here. Lads and lasses. Let's get behind them and make the lane bouncing on Saturday. Absolutely right. FX Autopilot says, loving the Sayers vibe. Previously was, we want players who want to run around. Now we want players who drive for goal and don't run out of steam after 70 minutes. Our league position last season, based on only the last 20 minutes of games, was 17th. That isn't happening this season. We talked about that on the last stream, didn't we? So, fitness has been a big problem for Sheffield United last season, whether we like it or not. If the season had finished, if all the games had started on 75 minutes last season and you'd only counted the results or the games for the last 15 minutes of the games, Leeds would still be top, Burnley would still be second, Sheffield United would be 17th, as FX says there. So in the last 15 minutes of games, our form was 17th. Hull were 4th. I think they were 4th or 5th under Sayers. And that was half a season with him in charge, I think. Lee says, exactly that. Exactly, thank the Lord that dinosaur has gone. I'd put 10 up front. Wow, okay. Liam says, Shackleton's missus is pregnant, so you can see where he's been focusing his efforts. Good luck for this season, Jimmy lad. Thank you, Liam. Home Funk says, good owners who want their club to progress invest in players. Loaning against future revenue and not out of their pocket is a bad sign. Not that they are awful owners, but not what we wanted, like a Birmingham, for example. So this is a common practice that we were doing under Prince Abdullah, borrowing future payments that we know are guaranteed so that you can utilise the money now. I would say it leans more towards us making permanent purchases now than it does against us struggling or needing money from anything else. It's just the owners are using the club money rather than their own money, which, why wouldn't they? They've invested 110 million quid. I think it's a little bit harsh, Home Funk, to be honest. If the £3 million asking price for Cornes has been is true, we have to go for it. As a half-decent season in the champ is worth 10 million plus. We need to be proactive when opportunities come up. I agree. I would love us to be in for Kone. Where does he play? Where and when does he play? Because we've got 3 striker positions. Oh, we've got 1 striker position, sorry. I don't think he really plays off the right or left, which isn't a deal breaker, by the way. Can still get a striker in. But we have got a £10 million striker sitting behind our number 1 striker. So Kone would come in as 3rd, and if he doesn't come in as 3rd, then you're pushing down our £10 million striker down the pecking order a bit. I just don't think it happens. I don't think it's a priority position for us. And I don't like saying that because obviously I want a young, up-and-coming, hungry striker from the league below that I think we can make value on. Of course I want that, but thinking practically and in a business fashion like the club will do, that I think is the situation. Cooler King says some good questions there and some considered answers too. I like the way he speaks. Hate to make comparisons to Wilder, but Sayers seems less about the emotional approach and more about the thoughtful. Yeah, very astute. I think that's probably about right. FX says we've taken loans out against future income almost all of the last 6 seasons, mate. Exactly. It's not a new thing for Sheffield United. Brett says it wasn't a Wilder presser, but he came across well. Sayers knows, like Dave the Nose knows. A lot of noses in there. Bring on the season, up the blades. Thank you, Brett. Owen Funk says, yes, man, and not smashing the lot up because you can't control the entire club and organise your own charity match are two separate things. Lee says, Jim, I'm being sarcastic, but not making any headway, making arguments, and YouTube isn't the right forum for it, so I'll just go along with it. Mate, you don't have to go along with anything. You know you can be honest here and have your say, mate. Nobody shoots you down. I know you had some back and forth in the comments, but when we bring your comments up, I take it as the meant, so you're entitled to your opinion here, pal. Brand says, I've got nothing against Sayers, Jim, and I like being negative, but we're going into another season with Robinson at the back. I assume you mean you don't like being negative, but we're going into another season with Robinson at the back and with the armband. Him and Bindon at the back is terrifying. Bindon needs a suitor or holding at the side of him. Okay, a couple of things there. How do we know that Bindon needs leadership at the side of him? We don't. For one, I think Bindon is a solid centre-back at this level. Not been proven yet, but excellent at the league below. And we're talking about somebody like Kone coming in who's been excellent at the league below, and we need him because he'd have such a good impact on the team. So if you compare apples and apples, or apples and oranges even, Bindon is a good signing. I think we're okay with Tyler Bindon. I think he starts. Robinson is a placeholder, I think. This is just my opinion. I think Robinson is a placeholder. If we get a Ben Godfrey in or Charlie Hughes, who do you think's coming out of the side? It's Ben Godfrey or it's Jack Robinson all day long. He's coming out of the side. I have no doubt in my mind that that's what's happened. What happens? The fact there is a captain. What was the alternative? So you make Gus Hamer the new club captain. I like it. I like it in terms of I don't think he's a born leader, but I think in some circumstances you can make players a captain because they are the best player, and it may bring that extra 5% out in them. So say you give it to Gus Hamer, for example. Jack Robinson's morale drops through the floor because you've stripped him of the captaincy. And maybe he kicks off a little bit behind the scenes. And that does nothing for anybody. Whereas, if you give yourself less problems at the moment while we try and sort everything out, then it's a smoother transition and a smoother process. I think that's what Chris Wilder did with him last season, in all honesty. There were no alternatives, and that's just my opinion. I will be surprised if the games in September, Jack Robinson's our starting centre-back. I don't think he will be. That's just my opinion, Bram. We'll know, won't we, soon? Bean says, I think people have overestimated how good Sariki and Brooks are. They're both good backups, but I don't think either are good enough to be a nailed-on starter for a team looking to be top six minimum. I would echo those concerns, if I'm honest. I think Sariki particularly has a huge upside. I think it's a big ask to ask both of them to be our first teamers for the full season. We will be weak down the right-hand side, undoubtedly, if that is the case. We've seen before Brooks doesn't really track back as much as we'd like him to. It's been better in pre-season. Sariki leaves big gaps. I think he stands off his man a little bit too much when he's defending. Going forward, he's absolutely excellent. But I think those are two positions that we will strengthen again before the start of the season. Bailey says, before the start of the season, before the close of the window, Bailey says, just seen on the BBC and reported by Peter O'Rourke that we could be in the running for Callum Doyle. Wouldn't mind either or Godfrey. I've started to see Callum Doyle's name mentioned a little bit after previously no mention of him at all. A left-footed centre-back. I like him as a player. I think he's going to be very expensive, which would make me surprised if we get into a bidding war for somebody like that when I think there's better value out there. But he's a good young player, which fits the profile of what we're after. So there's a possibility we could be in for him, yeah. But that's not come from any sources. That's just, I can see that possibly becoming a link. Which young striker would actually want to come and sit as third choice? I don't think anybody, Jack. We've already got a young striker that's trying to forge his way in. I think it's going to be a more experienced forward. I think that's why we're in for Ollie McBurney. That's the sort of profile of striker I think we will be looking at. I'll be surprised. Now, lad, missed the start. I was in the gym. I know you will have been over this, but how has he come over? He's come over great, Tone. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, we've covered it, but yeah, he come over really well. Pixie says, afternoon, Jim, lad. Looking forward to the new season. I'm going for a statement win, 5-0. A Campbell hat-trick, Barry with 2. Wow, Pixie, that is confidence. That is confidence. Love that. Love that. That'll settle some nerves, won't it, if that happens? Cooler King says, don't know where all this yes man stuff is coming from. So little is known about the owners and their plans that you can't possibly say Sayers is just a nodding dog. Nonsense. That's more my opinion on it, to be fair, Cool King. Andy says, let's give them all a chance to see where this journey takes us. Best chance for years to develop a squad and style that will survive and thrive in the Premier League. Doing a grand job, Jimmy. Thank you, mate. Really appreciate that. Yeah, it could potentially be. Some of the concerns, though, Andy, to push back on that, because that's a really positive comment, which I love. But I also have to give balance as well. Some of the concerns, rightly, are that we are not developing our own players with the loan signings of like Louis Barry and Tyler Binden. What we need now is permanent signings to complement this so that we can build and develop a squad that will survive and thrive for years to come if we are lucky enough to be promoted. But thank you for that, Andy. I appreciate it. Is Gus going to beat his 14 yellow cards this season, says Pixie? Or was that because he was further up front, maybe being in the middle and getting the ball winner to pass to him? He might not get as many cards. Possibly. Yeah, he used to get robbed a couple of times, didn't he, from higher up the field and then chase back like a madman and dive in, basically. I think in the middle he's more likely to pick up cards, so hopefully it's nowhere near the 14 he got last season, but yeah, he likes the yellow card, does that boy. Bill says the new owners have borrowed against future central funding in 2027. TV money when parachutes run out. No problem with that myself, but riskier lending than Prince Abdullah ever did. Have they borrowed against TV money after parachutes? Okay. Brand says, I don't mean in terms of leadership, Jim. I like Binden as a signing, and I think he'll hold his own. I mean, he needs a competent defender next to him. We know Robbo isn't that. Godfrey would be good. Yeah, fair enough then, Brand. Fair enough, mate. I think we're on a similar wavelength then, aren't we, with that? Lee says, Billy, it's not an issue. It's just different from actual investment, which is clear. Jack says, we need that quality on the right wing, centre-back and right-back. My only worry is that our foundation is going to be very weak when we get promoted. When we get promoted. See, that is first world problems right there, isn't it? I also wouldn't mind another centre midfielder. I agree with Jack here. I think we need 2 centre-backs, a right-back and a right-winger. Those are my 4 that I think we definitely need. And then I could be persuaded for another striker and centre midfielder, but I don't think they're necessarily needed. So we will call it there. Thank you to everybody that's joined me. I'm really impressed by his first press conference. It's got me super excited for Saturday. We are back tonight because I wasn't expecting this to be today. It could have been tomorrow. That's what I had it originally scheduled in for. But we are back tonight with Talking Sense with Andy the Blade. So I'll see if I can figure out this configuration. If I can't, then no great shakes. We're on, aren't we? And we get up and running. After what happened with YouTube and potentially losing the channel, I don't sweat little things like, oh no, I just started before I meant to and the mic's not working and stuff like that. We're not perfect. Don't claim to be. I will try and get better. So thank you to everybody for joining me and your continued support. Just a couple more comments before we finish. Chris says, I don't know if it's been mentioned as I just switched on, but did you see the Ollie McBurney video with Egan and Lundstrom? Good video, really. But if choice had a choice, I'd have Egan back. I wouldn't have Egan back, unfortunately. I loved John Egan, but I think he's past his peak, in all honesty. And I don't like saying that because he's been a brilliant player for us. I think Gus will be more disciplined under Selles, possibly Jack. And Mo says, we're not getting promoted. We need a striker. I don't think we've scored enough goals in pre-season, have we? That's the problem. What were the first one? 6-2, then a 5-0, and can't remember what results were, to be fair. But we are creating loads of chances, and we're scoring a lot of goals. And we scored 2 against Nice, and we apparently beat Fulham 3-2, and all this sort of thing. So we're doing all right. So thank you again to everybody for joining me. Really enjoyed our mid-afternoon catch-up. And I'll see you tonight for some Talking Sense with Andy the Blade. But for now, come on, you red and white wizards! Up the blades!